The Martians. Chapter 24. What? Why would you say, that's horrible, he knows we would never. Mindy gasped. Look at it his way. He lights up the thermite and then is going to run to the ship, but immediately the engines fire up and take off without him. Beth replied. But, no, he knew about the tilt override protocol, he was there before the storm when I told Commander Lewis about it. Mindy said as her eyes began to tear up. Yeah, but did he see the ship tilt? Alex asked. It's 13.5 degrees, like the MAV, right? Rick asked. Yes, but he would have seen a 13.5-degree tilt. Beth said. Look, I'm not saying he's right, I've got the telemetry recordings right here, you guys did nothing wrong, nothing at all, but you have to see things from his point of view. And from his point of view, we left him on Mars. Lewis said, completing the syllogism. I should go talk to him. When will he be awake? In a few minutes, we will give time for his pain drip to kick in first, but that won't work. For all he knows you gave the order. Dana replied, now openly crying. I will. Mindy said. If Commander Lewis didn't give the order, then you did. I mean, in his mind. He's not going to listen to any of the Vic-1 crew. I mean, he will act like he is, and never mention it again, but we will all feel it. The damage won't go away. I will, I'll talk to him. Alex, can you take the SysOp station for a few? Beth asked. Sure, Alex replied. Why you? Anna asked. Well, he already doesn't believe Chris, so he won't believe Rick or Alex either, and the Vic-1 crew is out, Commander Lewis included. I mean, like I said, he will pretend to agree, but we will all know he won't. In the back of his mind it will always be there, and well, you're the only one that could profit from it being true. Mindy said. So, when I tell him it isn't, I have leverage no one else here does. I guess it is time everyone knew about the whole Mindy, Beth and Mark triangle. Beth said. We know, Alex grunted while Rick openly laughed. You do? How? Mindy asked. It is a small ship, and someone was an angst-driven lunatic for a couple of months. Rick grinned. It's cool. We don't care, and we have never said anything about it to anyone, and never will. Giant space opera. Alex laughed. Giant sexy space opera, Rick added, with a glare of anger from Lewis. We're naturally curious if the Watney's space harem movie is true, but... Shut up, Martinez, not a word. That's totally inappropriate. Lewis blushed and for a moment grinned, then forced herself serious again. I'll go and wait for him to wake up if you got it, Alex. Sure thing, and none of us should ever mention any of this, right? I mean, I shouldn't log it. Alex asked. No. Beth gets it cleared up and it never happened, agreed. Lewis asked her crew. All nodded or said yes. There was no reason for it to ever be an issue, if Mark understood. It would only create awkwardness on the trip, and everyone understood Mark's perspective and thus his anger, and he knew that they knew of it. All hoped Beth could fix it. Beth, Mindy called out once Beth was in the center passageway nearing then shaft to the med bay. Yes. I wanted to say thanks. You, and, that, well, it really is good to finally meet you. Mindy replied. Yeah, you too. I hope our plan works, I mean, the one we have, not me talking to Mark, I mean, I hope that works too. Look, when I was down and falling apart over Mark, you could have gone full EXO on my ass and I would have spent 2 years in space thinking I had wasted my life. You were good to me and, well, I'm not going to fuck you over with Mark. Let's just get through this and start the work schedule, and the off-work schedule, you wrote. I'm looking forward to it. I can see why Mark loves you so much. You too, Beth. It's going to be a good trip home. Can't wait to start it. Mindy smiled. Beth slid down the connecting tube to the med bay, clutching the ladder rails as she went, and her weight increased. Back in Houston, KK, Henderson, Kapoor and Sanders were all on the verge of collapse from the emotional and stressful roller coaster they had been riding for the last few hours. The Watneys were numb with the same exhaustion. Neither the flight director, the director of Mars missions, or the director of NASA had slept in the last day. If truth were to be known, Mr. and Mrs. Watney had not either. KK was emotionally drained from trying her best to talk to Watney before and throughout the launch, and when Mitch finally told her she could stop, several minutes after the arrival the MAV by his clock, she fell forward in the seat being caught by her father and Dr. Riley Kaufman, the ground flight physician. "Thank you, Miss KK, you helped save his life," Dr. Kaufman said as he helped her lean back against the chair back. "Are you okay, honey? Need some air, or something to drink?" her mother and father asked. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I just feel, really weak. Drained. What do you mean? All I did was talk. All you did was give Dr. Watney something to focus on to take his mind off the pain. If he had gone into shock, we might not have been able to bring him back. You did great. Thank you. I'll get you something to drink. We should have the med report in a few minutes and we will know for certain Mark is alright. Then Kaufman smiled as he turned and went to a docent to order him to the break room for a ginger ale. Mama Watney, Mr. Watney, and KK stayed in mission control for the next hour listening to updates as they came in and would not leave until they heard Mark was absolutely going to be alright. When the initial report came in from Chris explaining the break and the limit of the harm, Dr. Kaufman explained how fortunate they were that Mark's injuries, although serious, no longer appeared to be life-threatening. Then it was KK's turn to help catch Mama Watney as she nearly collapsed from relief when the doctor told them. For some reason people on Earth would never know, the crew put off an overall update for several hours, but Annie was able to explain to the press that each was quite busy getting the ship ready to break orbit, stowing the voluminous samples and research that had returned with Victoria I, and the med staff was obviously putting Watney's health as first priority. It was known he was out of danger, but treating a broken bone in space came with its own challenges, which were explained to the press by Dr. Kaufman as Dana and Chris seemed unavailable. Mindy was returning to the command bridge when Lewis and Martinez left the green room and met her. "A moment please, Commander," Lewis said, and from the title use Mindy knew it was to be a serious conversation. "Sure, Beth is talking to Mark now, so I guess we just wait." "Yes, true, but I need to talk to you both for a minute away from the crew. Rick, as you know by NASA rules, Mindy is now XO of the mission. I've been working with her for several months on personnel and research issues and crew scheduling, and she's going to do a great job. Thing is, and Commander Park will be the first to tell you, she knows nothing about the Hermes relatively speaking, and I didn't have either the time or training equipment at KK to teach her. Mindy, as Associate Commander, Rick has filled the command billet of Hermes longer than anyone, including its commanders, past and present. So, I am doing a field promotion to full commander, and placing him in charge of flight operations. That is outside of NASA's orders, but as I told Anna earlier, Rick, I'll make it stick. I wanted to tell you both so there wouldn't be any, well, no hard feelings or misunderstanding. You've both been very professional and... Oh, thank God. Mindy near shouted, "I don't know anything about this ship that they don't teach at the visitor center in Houston." "Well, thanks, Commander, but that's really not necessary. I will follow your orders, and rank has never been a big deal on this mission, and..." "Yes, you will. I remain in charge over the mission, but I want both of you helping me. I've learned today that I can be emotionally compromised, and both of you, all the crew, really stepped up. I fly with amazing people." Missy smiled. "Oh, and Rick, during downtime, we are going to adopt a Vicky protocol. Just use first names." "Okay," Missy said as she pushed off to go back to the command center green room. "So, Mindy, I think we rule with an iron fist and whip these bastards into shape. How do you feel?" Rick giggled. "You're damn skippy." Mindy laughed. "No, just... no," Missy shouted behind her, glad that her two assistants could joke together, even sick jokes. In less than a minute, the crew was waiting in the green room for Beth to report back, all except Chris, who was in the corridor just outside the med bay. "I just turned the gas mix to all air, but we need to leave the mask on for a few. What he exhales has to be precipitated so the UN-absorbed anesthesia doesn't leak out and make us all stoned. Well, that, and it is pretty volatile and might explode, and that would be bad," Beth said, finishing Chris's sentence for him. "When can I talk to him?" "You can start trying now. Once he talks back it should be safe to take the mask off," Chris replied. Thanks, I only have a few minutes before we have to calculate and load the thrust vectors for braking orbit. They should be coming in from Houston now, Beth said as she stepped through the portal to the medbay and saw her beloved Mark laying on the exam bed with several 4 drips, naked except for his shorts and a blue net cast on his leg to above his knee, and a mask over his face. Hey Mark. Can you hear me? Ruagdal, Mark said softly. Was that a word, Mark? Can you hear me? Beth sweetly asked. Beth. Watney barely spoke. To Beth, that was good enough, and she lifted the respirator from his face. Hey. You're back. Beth smiled as Mark's eyes focused on her and he grinned. Hey, not the reunion I planned, but, you're here. Thanks. Thanks for coming back for me. Mark slowly said, still whispering. His voice sounded raspy due to the air he had inhaled over the last hour being dry. His throat felt raw and he looked around the room as if seeking something. What do you need? Water. Oh, Chris is right here, he will know where was all. Beth got out before Chris walked in, took a squeeze bottle from a nearby tray and gave it to Beth to administer. Just sips at first, your body has to wake up before you can swallow a lot of fluids, Chris instructed as he walked back out. Beth administered it as instructed, and after a few small sips Mark felt the relief of his throat rehydrating. Thanks, Mark said with a clearer, though still weak, voice. You're welcome. How do you feel? Bad. Like I drank champagne all night and now it's 3 a.m. and the alcohol is wearing off and the hangover is starting, and someone is frying ham and eggs and it's all making me nauseous, and my leg is, it hurts. Chris tells me you got lucky with the leg injury. Green stick fracture and you are all fixed up and waiting to heal. You get extra calcium drips and we all get more gravity so you can get better. No one minds that. Well, the Vici crew probably does. They are used to living in 6/10s of AG. Well, they left me on Mars, Beth. They fucking left me on Mars, I thought. I thought they were they left me on Mars. Mark wept. Beth crawled onto the bed beside Watney and lay her head on his shoulder as he wrapped his good arm, the one without 4 lines, around her. She was so good to him despite his neglecting of her for so many months. Mark felt unworthy of her loyalty and affection but was glad she was there for him. So, if that's what you think, I get you all to myself now, I guess, Beth grinned. Yeah, I guess, I should have never. Except that is a lie, and I don't want to live a lie, and I don't want you to either, Beth interrupted. What? I saw it, Beth, I saw them launch. They could have idled the starters for a couple minutes, that was more than enough time for me to get back. Instead, I had to dive into the door of the hab before the shock wave hit. Well, fall really. I was already in the doorway. That's what hit my leg and... Yes, I'm sure that is what you saw, all the telemetry says so. But you know about the tilt override protocol, don't you? It didn't tilt, I would have seen it. No, Mark, but it thought it did. Here, look, Beth said as she held her tablet in front of him. This line is the readings for the lower level gyros. Apparently, the fuel, hydrogen and O2 from the previous launch attempt collected under the cowling and blew up when you lit up your sparkler. It's pretty cool that you got those to work, by the way. Pyros all over Earth are worshipping you like a god these days, I imagine. Anyway, that blew up, you probably saw that, and all 3 lower gyros took a thump and went out of whack. Look, this one shows a 27-degree tilt, that one an 18, and the center one, it took the biggest thump, says 183 degrees, it literally signaled that the ship was upside down. So it launched, and since those didn't agree, it switched main guidance to the digital ones inside the systems until they rebooted throughout the ship. The launch command was automatic and the only telemetry until Anna got it under control was up. Mark stared at the data and knew Beth was right. As much as I would love to have you all to myself, I can't do that, Mark. I hope that, clears things up. Now, I must get back to the con and help get us on our way home. Are we all good? I was an ass to Donna. Yeah, it upset her to see you in so much pain, but I don't think anyone else has seen this data, Mark. It's our little secret, and I'm not logging it. Beth wasn't lying, Donna did hate to see Mark in pain, no one else had actually seen the data, and it was to be a secret that went unlogged. You are going to hang out here for a while, I guess. You want Chris to get you a line to Houston so you can let your folks know you are okay. Yeah, and thanks Beth. You're Mark replied as he hugged her as hard as he could with one arm while medicated. You might want to talk to your friend KK too. I think she is probably worried about you, Beth said as she kissed Mark for the first time since before training. She talks a lot, doesn't she? Mark grinned. Yeah, they were worried you might go into shock and wanted to give you something to focus on. As I understand it, your biometric readouts were most normal when she was talking, so Houston just had her keep it up. Who knew a 15-year-old high school girl could talk on the phone so much? Every 15-year-old boy in the world. Probably right, Beth smiled. See you in a few.